Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Professor Silas Odongo, and my channel is Professor Silas Odongo's Knowledge Hub. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk to you today about sustainable wildlife resource use in a changing climate. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking about impacts of climate change on a number of things. Today we want to focus our attention to how climate change impacts our wildlife and what we can do about it. We know very well that climate change impacts our wildlife in a number of ways, and it largely affects our wildlife negatively. And you know very well that climate change is associated with habitat loss. So when we have our habitat being cleared down, or when high temperatures or even wildfires burn bushes or forests, then our wildlife will have problems. We also have fragmentation, or even leading to shift in species distribution. We talked about this previously. You look at the various life cycles and even food availability, and these are many critical issues that normally affect our wildlife. If you look at habitat and environment, we normally have seen unprecedented disappearances of a lot of habitats. For example, if we have extreme weather or extreme climate, then we've even seen death of animals. Sometimes you've seen even sea level rises and its various effects on aquatic life. You'll be able to see that. If you look at the species and population, climate change will always lead to migration and even some of the conflicts that we have had. We've had conflicts between animal and humans, between animals and animals. So you can look at those. Either way, there is going to be disruptions. And on species and population, we have seen climate change leading to migration and even conflicts. We have been able to see a great deal of conflicts between animals and animals, or those that are animals and humans, a lot of them. To a large extent, they will disrupt animal behaviors, particularly wildlife behavior. Look at migration and even breeding and the impact of that. Look at even pests and diseases, and look at even animal extinction. We have been able to have a report across the globe which shows that a great deal of animals or wildlife have been able to migrate. Some have been able to die because of various effects of climate change. If you look at food web and even ecosystems, you've been able to see that climate change has led to reduced food availability. And this has caused food web disruptions. Look at that. And to a large extent, we even had what we call the invasion of those species, those invasive species. We talk about them later on. But what can we do about this? Is it possible that climate change can affect wildlife in this way and we don't do anything about it? Wildlife is very important for us. So if we adopt sustainable wildlife resource use, where we want to ensure that we entrench a sound management system, where we manage wild animal populations, because humans will depend on it. If we safeguard their habitats, we ensure that there is their long-term survival. We ensure that we use wild animals or wildlife to be able to secure our socio-economic and cultural needs now without affecting it in future, then we would have adopted a good method. Is it possible that this method can come out of the blues? It's not possible. There is supposed to be what we call balanced conservation. So we need to balance conservation with sustainable human benefits of the same for us now and even for the future. So if we still continue to use as unsustainable wildlife resource use, then we might have exploitation, overexploitation. We would have wildlife species that we are having getting finished more quickly than they can naturally regenerate. So whichever method that we normally use to deal with wildlife resources, they should be those that will ensure that we get the benefit from our wildlife without really getting them into extinction, both for us and in the future. Now, we should be guided by certain principles. So some of the principles that people continue to use, some of the practices that people continue to use which are unsustainable could include like overfishing. If you go to our water bodies and then you deplete all fish resources or even aquatic resources, you even go on to damage their habitats where they live and where they reproduce, then there will be problem. We have also been able to see an increasing illegal and unsustainable logging or deforestation. These are quite a lot, where people clear the bushes. They also burn down forests or cut down forests to give way for agriculture or to give way for construction or even mining. This is not good for our wildlife. We've had the cases of poaching and illegal trade. We've had people doing all manner of hunting and even animal trafficking. We've been able to have a great deal of that. This is unsustainable. We've also been able to have people using unsustainable gathering. There are communities that just overharvest. They just overharvest plants, animals, and they do probably nothing with them. We also have unregulated hunting. Those kind of huntings that will not really ensure that we continue to have our wildlife. We've been able to see a great deal of habitat destruction. People are able to clear the bushes and burn them. People do mining. People even engage in infrastructural expansion. People do a great deal of deforestation. So these ones are not good for our habitats. Now, when we are supposed to deploy sustainable management of wildlife, but that will work for us, then we need to really be guided by a number of principles. One of the principles is what we call ecological knowledge. Is it possible that all of us, or people living around places where wildlife inhabit, will be having what we call ecological knowledge? Where do they get it from? Do we ensure that whenever we are making decisions on how to use our wildlife, we are guided by scientific, technical, and even traditional knowledge around even the population dynamics, even migration dynamics, or even reproduction of the various species? Are we able to look at the habitat needs and even ecosystem roles that we are having? So if we do that, then we say that we have an enabling ecological knowledge. We also controlled by sustainability. Is it possible that we can utilize wildlife resources without depleting them, so that we have their populations continuing to thrive, to exist, so that they can regenerate over time? Is it possible that we can prevent overexploitation of our resources, particularly wildlife resources we have here? Are we able to control the long-term decline that we have been able to see? The other one is about community involvement. Is it possible that we can involve all stakeholders? How do we empower them? Do we empower the local communities? Do we tell them that they have the rights or even responsibility that they can have around wildlife management? Is it an incentive enough to be able to help us? Whenever there is tourism and even hunting that we see around, are we able to come up with methods that are going to help us to share the benefits that come from wildlife? What about adaptive management? Are we going to ensure that we adjust our management based on new information? We do a lot constant research so that we are able to get information around how we can handle these issues. Even with climate change, we are able to know, so what is changing, what has changed, and how do we go about it? How do we map out how it affects wildlife? So look at that. Is it possible that we can adopt integrated landscape management planning, for example? We notice that conservation is very important, particularly when it is planned. And how is it supposed to be planned? We have livestock and we have landscape and ecological level planning. If we are to use them, we link them with protected areas or surrounding areas, then we are able to do good work. Is it possible for us to adopt very strong governance and legal frameworks that will be helpful for us? if we enforce them together, if we coordinate all the policies around wildlife management? Is it going to be important for us? So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk about what are some of the best practices or sustainable methods and practices that we can use to manage wildlife in the wake of climate change. We're talking about habitat conservation and restoration. We know very well that our wildlife will live in habitats. Habitats will be maybe terrestrial or they will be aquatic, and we need to adopt ways of conserving those habitats. Is it possible that, for example, we can start by preserving wetlands? What about forest? Look at the wetlands and then the forest. What about aquatic environments, the swamps around? What about population monitoring? Is it possible for us to have a mechanism of ensuring that we conduct regular surveys? So these surveys will give us data. We can even use camera traps, or we can use eDNA, or even satellite imagery to be able to assess the population of our wildlife, so that we even note the trends and even their movement or distribution, so that we are able to use all this information to make decisions. Are we supposed to or able to do what we call regulated use? Look at hunting and trade. Look at licensing. Is it possible that we can come up with licenses, quotas, or even seasons when these things are happening, so that we can control how we are going to use our wildlife in manners that will enable us to use them today and even in the future? How will we prevent human-wildlife conflicts? Is it possible for us to do that? How do we do that? Is it possible that we get a natural method of controlling animal-human conflicts? Is it possible for us to develop what we call new alternatives, so that we get development away from just over-reliance on wildlife? Look at the alternative available. Or are we able to give education and awareness, or even create knowledge in stakeholders, so that they are able to protect biodiversity that we have around? So if we do all this, we will be saying that we are now entrenching sustainable methods and practices that can enhance the proper use of wildlife resources. Habitat conservation, population monitoring, regulating the use, controlling human-animal conflicts, thinking about development alternatives away from wildlife, and even providing education and public awareness about the value of wildlife. And doing this does not come without challenges. We have quite a lot of challenges. Well, some of the challenges that we have could be, we've had unprecedented habitat loss and fragmentation. People across the globe are quickly increasing in population, and as such, there is a lot of conversion of natural landscape for agriculture and even urbanization. So we are really turning forests, we are turning reserved areas into agriculture or into urban centers, and that has got impact. We also are exploiting the wildlife. We even have illegal methods that people are using, and this could be to a large extent caused by lucrative black market, particularly on wildlife products. You can imagine that. We have these foreign markets where people want to come and illegally do the trade. We have climate change. Is it possible that the shifting climate patterns that we are having, the temperature changes that we are seeing, even the rising sea levels that we are able to see in these places, will affect species and even their survival and distribution? And these are things that are really real. What about the invasive species and even the diseases that we are having? Look at those. So we have like zoonotic diseases. Look at the governance and the resource limitations that we are having. Look at the policies, insufficient funding. Look at even corruption, shortage of trained personnel to deal with the wildlife sector. Ladies and gentlemen, today I was just talking about how do we manage our wildlife when we are aware of climate change. A number of things have been discussed. What are some of the impact of climate change on wildlife? I've been able to give them some of the ways by which we can surmount this, some of the practices that are not very good for us, some of the principles that will ensure that we do only the good things with our wildlife. And then I went on to discuss some of the sustainable methods. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to end there, and I want to remind you to keep on liking, sharing, and even commenting, even subscribing to this channel, because we have quite a lot of things that we need to share with you. Welcome again. Bye.